Hey, this is the video for 3.2, K-selected and R-selected species. So go ahead and check out the overview and set up your guided notes. Now, when we're analyzing a population over time, when a population is kind of just starting out in an ecosystem and they have unlimited resources, the population will grow exponentially. And this is often considered the biotic potential, as indicated by the lowercase letter r. Now, at a certain point, this population will get really, really large, and then it will start to die off, and it may fluctuate, increasing and decreasing over time. And this level at which the population peaks is called the carrying capacity. And the carrying capacity is indicated by the uppercase letter K. Now, why does this matter? Well, we are talking about K-selected and R-selected species. And in this situation, we talk about quality versus quantity. K-selected species tend to be more quality. And what does that mean? Well, they have a longer lifespan. They reach reproductive maturity later in life. They have very few reproductive events relative to their life cycle. They have few numbers of large offspring. They have a slow population growth, and their population is actually near the carrying capacity. So a graph of a K-selected species population will look something like this. Now, in R-selected species, they tend to have a very short lifespan. They reach reproductive maturity earlier in life. They have many reproductive events, and they have a large number of small offspring, and they have very rapidly fast population growth, and their population can be variable, which means it can easily fluctuate. So when you see a graph of a K-selected species, it's going to look like this blue line, and an R-selected species will be pretty much all over the place. Now, some of these organisms, K-selected species, a general rule of thumb, and this is not a hard, fast rule, but they tend to be more specialists, and an R-selected species tends to be more generalist. This is not a hard, fast rule, but this is something that is kind of linked. Now, the reproductive strategy between something being a K-selected and something being an R-selected, it's not either K or R, it's more of a spectrum. So some organisms, like a zebra mussel, are straight R-selected. Some organisms like fish, some fish might take care of their young and have smaller number of offspring, so they can be a little bit closer to R, but not quite entirely R. Some organisms like rabbits will take care of their young far longer than a zebra mussel, for example. Then something like a coyote or a wolf is going to take care of their organisms, but they may have a larger number of offspring. And then something like a chimpanzee or a human or an elephant would be very highly associated with a K-selected species. So some examples of R-selected species, they tend to be invasive if given the opportunity. And one very famous invasive species is the cane toad. And the cane toad originated along with sugarcane, and they ate specific beetles that were infesting the sugarcane. And they were brought into Australia initially, and they overtook a lot of the environment. One thing about the cane toad is they secrete toxins. So when any animals would try to eat them, they would die because they were not adapted to the poison. And the cane toads also had voracious appetites. So they were brought into Australia, where they are a hugely invasive species. They've also been showing up in the southern United States, most notably in Florida. Another example is the Norway maple. Norway maple, obviously it's from Norway or originated in Europe. These are very invasive in the United States, especially in the New York area. If you go to Prospect Park, Norway maples are everywhere. They form a monoculture, which means it's basically one giant forest filled with mostly Norway maples, and then they will shade out the plants that are on the forest floor. So those are considered the understory plants. They will be displaced. If you go down to areas in South America and the Caribbean, you'll see a lot of eucalyptus plants. They're another example of a tree that is invasive. A lionfish, you may have seen one of these before at an aquarium shop, but lionfish were actually, they're not native to the Gulf of Mexico, but they were released into the Gulf of Mexico and in the Caribbean Sea, and now they are invasive because they will be, basically what they're doing is they're consuming organisms that are involved in the food webs in the coral reef ecosystem. Another one that's affecting the New York area and around the Great Lakes is a zebra mussel. Zebra mussels, they're actually quite good at removing pollutants from water, but what they will do is they will filter all the algae, and they will basically go on to native mussels and incapacitate them. Like they will attach to them and basically make the native mussels unable to function. But mussels are actually very, very good filter feeders, and they've done great jobs of cleaning up the East River, for example. And one that you're probably seeing a lot more these days is a spotted lanternfly. This has been invasive in the New York or the northeast coast of the United States. It came from China. They don't have any native predators, and they will basically feed on the sap from parts of trees. They will suck the moisture out of like fruits like peaches and pears and apples. So they are potentially very dangerous for the agricultural businesses in the United States. I gave you a lot of information. I would like you to respond to this check for understanding. And now for our FRQ practice, I want you to explain why populations of our selected species tend to be highly variable. So I thank you for your attention. I hope this video was helpful, and I will see you soon.